Hello, everyone. Welcome to our National Citizenship Services Day virtual event hosted by PALCUS. We are really happy to have you all with us today because we get lots and lots of questions about the citizenship process, and we will be addressing some very specific topics today that hopefully speak to a lot of the questions that we get. Presenters today are Sabrina Broom from Portugal Solutions, Monique Kelly-Valance from Marie B. Kelly and Associates, and Nelson Ponta-Garça from Becoming a Portuguese Citizen, and Sandra Carapinha from Learn European Portuguese Online. They will be addressing not only certain paths to citizenship, but also Sandra will be talking about the SIPL language test, which is the requirement for getting citizenship through grandparents.
Hello, everybody. I hope you could hear me well. Great presentation. It's great to be in company of good friends here. A great job, Sabrina, there on the presentation. I'll get into more detail, but grandparents will be pretty much everything she said, plus the Portuguese test that will be then explained by Sandra Carapinha later. We'll get into detail on these things. Let me just give you a little bit of overview for those that don't know me. I'm Nelson Ponta-Garça, NPG. I was the advisor for the Portuguese communities for the past 7-8 years, and dealing with the consulates was one of the areas and the issues that the Portuguese have the most complaints, that, availability, short staff. And then we try to pass that message to Portugal, to the Secretary of State, to the Portuguese Congress. Throughout all these years, for more than 8 years, we passed that message. And I didn't really see a change. In some years, actually, it would get worse and then would get a little better. It really depends on the consulate, because in some areas, we're really blessed, for example, in California, with an amazing consulate, Pedro Pinto. Although they're short-staffed, they do everything the best that they can. But some areas, it really depends on the personality of the consul general. So this was one of the main issues, along with air transportation. Citizenships was one of the main issues of the community. And after 8 years of advocating for the Portuguese in Lisbon in Congress, not seeing change, we decided to start doing it as a private service ourselves, as Portugal Solutions and other great services out there, to find a framework to try to expedite and to make it more clear on this process of every step they have to take, and to make this a better experience, more of a hassle-free experience than the experience you have with a consulate. Now, if you allow me, Angela, before I would get into the grandparents, because Sabrina did such a great job, that the only thing I would add more into that is that the really big difference on the grandparents here is that there's the Portuguese test and the Portuguese basics that you need to have. So you need to prove that you have a Portuguese, enough Portuguese
knowledge of the language, yeah.
Right. So, and then I'll go into some of the things you need that for a little bit, but it's pretty much all of that. So usually what I say is you only go to grandparents when you have no other way, no other chance. For example, many people go through grandparents, and they what they should do is they should convince their parents, if they're still living, to do it first. And then once their parents, when they do it, so my parents are not interested, or they're older. We have some clients, they're, on their 80s, and they're like, I might not be here when I get the citizenship. But they're doing that for their kids because it makes it easier for their kids. And the difference is, if you go through parents, if your parents are still living and you're watching this webinar right now, I would advise that they do it first, and then you do it even if they have no interest. Why? Because it's going to be way easier, because you're both going to go through parents, and it's going to take way less time, way less money, way less documents. Just as an example, there's no FBI reports, there's no letters of connection, and mostly there's no need to wait all these years, because now one of the $1 million questions, I think Sabrina could confirm on that, is everybody wants to know how long. And it's really hard for us to really put a time on it. We put an estimate of 1 year for parents, although we've been able to do it in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months. and sometimes it's taken longer as well, more than a year. Spouses, what we like to say is about 2 years now, but the grandparents, they could, when we say 3 years, enough, I mean, Angela, you could attest to that. It took you almost a decade. Things on the way. Ideal those 3-4 years, but then there's documents that they ask, or there's different things happening. So, to those listening to us that are more far removed from, that went many other generations ago to America, what I recommend, that happened in Hawaii when I went to show my documentary and the book I published about the Portuguese in Hawaii. Because the Portuguese went there in the late 1800s, as in California. First Portuguese registered in California was in 1815. So we already have 5, 6, 7 generations. Many people in Hawaii and California, they stopped being able to do it. And that's one of the things I would like to bring and raise awareness. Kind of a red flag is, even if you're not sure about this, or you're thinking, oh, why should I do citizenship? Because I don't want to move to Portugal, or, I have an American citizenship, or this is a lot of work. One thing that is important to know is that the grandparents is the last opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
So, and we met a lot of people in Hawaii that are very passionate, and I'm using this example because it happened recently. They really wanted to become citizens, and they've discovered Portugal, and they're coming back, and they're even interested in staying here more than 3 months. So, but they could not do it. And they were very Portuguese. They knew, they knew how to do the malasadas. They knew all the Portuguese songs, and they came to Portugal many times, but they could not become a citizen.
Right, so because the only other path, if it's not through parents, spouse, or grandparents, is to move to Portugal and do it through residence, right?
And again,
that's the only other option.
Let me make an addition to this. When I say that they cannot become a citizen, I'm saying through heritage, parents, grandparents, spouse. There's other ways they could become a citizen, but they usually give up on it because it's much longer. You could go through the golden visa that nobody really knows if it's ending or not. The last time I spoke personally with the Secretary of State of Communities, PALCUS, he said it's going to end. They don't like it. It's not a popular thing. The people in Portugal don't like it. It's not something that the political parties want to continue, because the Portuguese see that as something that will increase the real estate market. It will get rentals higher. I think it was a good thing, and it brought a lot of investment to Portugal. But I could also see how bringing a lot of millionaires to Portugal, kind of inflates a little bit. It's a large debate, so I don't want to pronounce on that.
That's a different webinar.
Right. The disadvantages of the golden visa, and it's not something we're focusing on this presentation as well, because it takes, just to give you an idea, because it's not part of the agenda, but might be a question people have. The golden visa is kind of a good solution, like there's others, if you have absolutely no connection or no heritage. So you are blessed if you have a little bit of Portuguese that you could do this, because the golden visa takes way longer, about 5 years. It requires an investment that varies, but it is around roughly about $500,000 in real estate. If it's commercial, it's less. There's different avenues. But this just goes to show how important and how privileged you are to obtain a citizenship. Now that I'm on this topic.
Oh, we froze. You know what, while we are waiting for him to come back, we have a couple of questions coming in. I was born in Lisbon, Portugal, so do I have automatic citizenship, or do I have to go through my parents who were born in Cape Verde, and they were born with Portuguese citizenship as well? So they already have it. They just have to look up their birth
if you
record.
were born in Portugal, all you have to do is request a birth certificate for yourself. If a birth certificate comes up, then great, you're a Portuguese citizen. If not, it's something to look into.
And can you drop the website link where someone would, if they wanted to look it up themselves? I know the websites are complicated to navigate, but if they wanted to look it up themselves, where would they go?
I don't know what that website is.
Well, yeah, we'll post it later on in the like all the notes and everything from the webinar. But yes, you can just look it up and get a copy, a certified copy. And Nelson is back. Are you back?
I am back. Sorry, I am.
No problem.
I am in the middle of the Atlantic in São Jorge Island in a feijão called Caldeira de Santo Cristo, which many years ago, and many people were responsible. There was no electricity. You have to come four-wheeler, and this is like to come and plan my books, my documentaries, and I was just in this project here as this webinar happened. So I apologize for the technical conditions, but I am in the middle of the Atlantic. So I was saying that one of the advantages of becoming a Portuguese is that you pass that down to other generations, and if you don't do it, you know, they might be really interested in do it in the future and not be able to do that. So it's crucial that you do it so that you don't lose.
Mm-hmm.
So when the connection went down, I was right about to share my screen here.
Yeah, we have quite a few questions on grandparents, so we could go through the process and then we can answer questions.
Okay, so I'll just go here really quick, Cheryl. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So one very useful thing that I have here, I think it kind of crosses. Presenters will do.
You're cutting out quite a bit, Nelson.
Portugal. This is from our site. Okay.
It's we can see your screen is the audio is cutting out.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. What the screen have, I pretty much have it memorized. Number one, then I'm happy to share this, and then if you reach PALCUS, they could provide some of this data. A lot of people that to become either a citizen through parents that citizen. So the one question to ask is, were you born in Portugal? Because many people don't have their ID, their passport, so they think they're not a dual citizen. And that happens more than you think. I want to become a, and we ask, were you born in Portugal? Were born in Portugal, so they're already a citizen. So this process that we're talking about, parents and the whole process of getting approved by the Portuguese government that you could become a Portuguese citizen. And once you do that, you get a birth certificate. You're born on the date that the process is approved. We got a client recently that his birthday was year 2023. It's kind of funny. So that is the proof that you are now a Portuguese citizen. And with that birth certificate, now you could go get your IDs. You don't get your ID automatically. And that's usually pretty fast after that. Because many people ask, why is it so fast to do it? I heard somebody got their ID, their passport in a week, down in a month. Yeah, because they were already a citizen. But if they're getting their citizenship through grandparents, parents, or spouse, to get approved first. So advantages of becoming a Portuguese citizen. There's more than 27 European countries where you will now become a citizen. So once you become a citizen of Portugal, you're not only a citizen of Portugal, you're a citizen of Spain, France, Italy, Germany, that actually rates higher than the American economy, the American education. So you get that advantage of being able to work, to have Medicare in all these different countries. So this is one of the main advantages that we usually bring up. There's the one that I think it's the most is that you make sure that your descendants are able to do this, and you're not the last link, especially if it's at the grandparent level. And then one last one that I usually joke around with is you get a free membership for like a Clear, the Clear membership that you pay to go on the faster lane. You kind of get a free membership for life, because every time you go on the airport, you'll see a huge line of people with the American passports, other international passports, and then a very short line with a European passport, because most Portuguese descendants, but they don't have their Portuguese passport, the vast majority. So they go through the line with their American or Canadian. So it's kind of a free $200 a year membership lifetime fast track through that. So just some advantages of becoming a Portuguese citizen. You can even ask ChatGPT. He knows. If ChatGPT knows, we all should know. I think you should do it. I think it's a great way for you to stay connected to the Portuguese heritage, not only through food, through music, through culture, through language, but through identity. Because whether you like it or not, you could, know all the Portuguese you've learned through great teachers like you're going to have Sandra. You could know how to cook the Portuguese food. You could listen to Portuguese music. But if you don't have the Portuguese citizenship, you are not a Portuguese citizen. You have your Portuguese heritage, but you're not truly a citizen. So if you want to stay, for example, in Portugal more than 3 months, you cannot. If you want to take care, if you want to inherit something in a simple way without having to go through all kinds of legal complex situations, you have to be a citizen. Okay, so now, Angela, I will break down a little bit now to open to some questions. And if I can answer, if I cannot answer, because some cases on the grandparents, it's hard to answer specifically. We would have to see the documents, but we'll try the best that we can at this point.
So I think maybe one thing though too is, so I know that Sabrina kind of listed all the documents that you need. So there is an application, but what are some of the other documents that you need? The grandparents' birth certificate from Portugal to show that? You need a certified copy or just a regular copy?
The only thing that differs major from everything that Sabrina explained on the presentation is that the person that is going to grant you the citizenship is going to be, you don't have to, that's one question a lot. Oh, both my parents need to be Portuguese? No. One of the grandparents is enough, as with the parents is the same thing. So one of the challenges is going to be to go find and go get that parent. Because if it's more than 100 years ago that they were born in Portugal, it will not be online on the Civil online where we could access and get you a PDF. Actually, in Portugal, getting a birth certificate, it's much faster and easier and cheaper than America. For a bureaucratic country, we do have some things that are faster, better, and easier. But on the grandparents, there's some cases, if your grandparents, if it wasn't more than roughly 100 years ago, if it was, what we do is we have partnerships with people that are specialized in genealogy, that research birth certificates in Madeira, in the continent, to go find certificates, because many times that birth certificate won't work. If I have this, I have that, will it work? Until you see it. Certificates won't work because they're kind of not an official thing, or they're not enough. But yeah, so that would that you need to start working is getting birth certificates for the grandparent. The difficult, it might not be something you get online. It might be something you have to go to the parish or to the records. Each has a bit responsible. Okay. The other major prove the connection to community. You also need to prove proficiency in Portuguese. You need to be able to have basic skills of writing, of reading. That Sandra will come, and I don't want to call it basic because Sandra will get upset on me and roll because she tells that easy sometimes. I just see that is easier, so you don't get discouraged and you give up, because we've had a few clients that went and once they realize the amount of Portuguese they have to get into, we have to refund, and that's okay. But I like to stay positive that you can do it. It's not hard. If you put some time into it, you do it. But Sandra's correct. She always corrects me on that. It does require some effort, and it does require some skills. So that would be the major thing that is different. You would need, of course, your birth certificates, the apostille for your birth certificate, your ID, everything else that was on that. And if you want the specific list to give you, I would like to use this time. I would like to use this time to give you some tips and some things, like the fact that you should be looking for that grandparents' birth certificate because it takes a while. Another tip I usually give is, many people say, well, I already have my birth certificate. Well, you should always get another one, because my experience is that sometimes you have a birth certificate that you think it doesn't. But the most important thing is okay. So if you already have one, keep it for your records, because you should always have one, and order a new one to make sure that it's enough. There's nothing they could pick on, okay? So I would recommend that you request those birth certificates again. The birth certificate, you could also request the apostille at the same states, is both at the same time, so it saves you time. And then FBI report of connection as well. On the parents, that's one of the things that takes a lot of time, and people get a little pissed off when they do the service, and then we tell them that we need to do their marriages, especially if the parents or they're not together, or there's a little bit of conflict. It could be an issue to try to deal with that situation. The good grandparents case, I'm not going to say you don't need to register marriage, depends on the cases, but in general, your parents, they're not, that's why you're going to marriage, because they're not Portuguese. Cases because the grandparents, in almost all cases, they were married, because many of them never left Portugal. Some left when they got married and they left. So there's a little bit. Grandparents, to sum up the conversation and my presentation here, should be the path that you use when you have no other option, and you should always check if there's a possibility of you going through the parents. It will save you headaches. It will save you money.
Thanks, Nelson. So we're going to use the last 9 minutes here in this session to answer some questions. And our first question is from Jacob. My grandmother has a certidão de narrativa completa de registro de nascimento. I said that pretty well. Is this the same thing as a birth certificate?
Well, that sounds fancy enough to me, but again, it would officially have to be.
We're not sure.
We have cases where it, and it had a lot of stamps and a lot of stuff, and we took it to the conservatórios, and they didn't like it, or they didn't take it, or because something was missing, or you couldn't, or very old documents. So what we always recommend, because I don't want to say that sounds like it. That sounds like you have it. I don't want to. It's like, most likely that's what you need. But what I would recommend is that whether if you use our services or you want to do it on your own, is check. And then we check and we see if they take it. we've had stuff that looked pretty official and pretty legit, and they wouldn't take it because of A, B, or C.
Okay. Next question from Richard. My grandfather was born in 1896 in Portugal, and the only birth record I have is a picture of his baptism recorded in church records at the church they attended. Will I need a certified birth record still from Portuguese civil registration showing additional proof that he was born there, and how do I go about getting one?
Okay, so the main elements to prove that you could have the citizenship, and what you have are very helpful to get to the others, to go and Angela, is it?
So you're cutting out quite a bit, so I'm not getting kind of what you're saying, but unfortunately.
What region, Angela?
It just says in Portugal, so it could be.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I was asking the region, not because of Bairris, because it in the that year. So, for example, a special that they use for that. It's a very nice facility where everything is accessible, and you can go there and find it. In other areas, depends sometimes churches. Depends on that they have, and usually we have a team of people in G that dedicated their lives to researching those documents, and that they're really good at tracing and finding those documents, because is a big challenge.
Okay.
On your own.
Okay. I am applying for citizenship through my grandfather. I have all of my documents, including the civil certificate, but I'm waiting for my grandparents' marriage registration. Should I apply now, or do I need to wait to get their marriage registration first?
So usually what we advise on the process,
I think we're going to have a separate dedicated session on grandparents.
And getting many times they don't take this process or that process. Start getting everything ready, and then there's another things, but try to get your birth certificates first. Usually the first things to get going is your birth certificates, the apostilles, and then get and then it depends on if you're gonna do it on your own or if you're gonna hire services. Hire services, then you can different timings. Let me add something I forgot earlier on the birth certificates. They especially the ones online that you get, there's that note that they also expire. Many people, they say, oh, well, I have this birth certificate, this Portuguese birth certificate. And well, to get another one, the correct one, because and the birth certificates in Portugal, they're pretty simple. They're a PDF, and usually what the Conservatória de Registros Centrais or the other 27 places also approve citizenship take, it's like numbers and letters. It's like that you will, and they actually don't even use the birth certificate itself. They use just that code. So basically, if you already have a birth certificate, you need to get that code and you need to get that update, because that's what they'll request.
Okay. See, we got a couple more. Okay. I'm applying through my grandfather. I have his information from Crusada, but cannot get my grandmother's birth certificate. She was born in California, but was not born in a hospital. So did she have to have her grandmother's birth certificate, or can she just use her grandfather's information?
Yeah, so the main element that you will need is the parent, parent that was born in Portugal. So that one you need to have that that in some cases, like Sabrina said, it depends on the case, and I don't want to generalize, so say, oh, that's wrong or that's wrong. We have to look case by case. But in some cases, for example, on adopted kids, or for example, there's situations of in vitros, or there's all these different situations where you might not need some elements. You might not need the other parent or the other grandparent. The one you will need for sure, and you need to verify that if that document is accepted, is the Portuguese grandparents, because that one is the one that's going to make your connection to Portugal.
Okay. Let's see if we can fit in one more question. Let's see. Just scrolling, we have a lot that aren't related to grandparents. Okay, my grandfather was born in Saint George over 100 years ago, and we too have an online copy of the baptism. Okay, that's not really a question. Sorry.
Yeah, so Saint George, I'm talking to you from the island of your grandfather.
Here's one. Are any of you or either of you solicitors in Portugal that could submit the application through the new online system?
Well, the new online system, it was actually one of the items. It was on the agenda for PALCUS. I think of everybody on this panel for the last meeting that a lot of these all do. They're embryonic, so they don't much. There are some things that do online. We get roughly about 100 is there many times, but the question there is, you can't play online and all through Portugal. What there is, I think we have that framework where we have an online system. Do that, you could upload documents, you could see all the steps, actually have an app that you could have on the do all these things. So we make a lot of the process, and then all the documents that need to be the physical documents that they want, the hard paper, the applicants, the stamps, the birth certificates, they want all those, and they keep it. It's not for service different in this panel. People that involve all of those. For example, include notaries, include lawyers. For example, if part of your process is a divorce, and a divorce needs to be filed by or even it's friendly, like in America, with no lawyer. In Portugal, it's mandatory that you do it through a lawyer. So we have a team that does this, and actually see here, and the notaries, they get all your apps, all that. So within the panel, you pretty much have all the resources to do that, and then of course the legal team of people that are not here with us, but that are very experienced. So we have, for example, we will be present in different initiatives with Nelson Perez, that's been doing this for more than 25 years, mostly in New Jersey. Lawyers that work throughout the nation and have a lot of experience doing this. So within this group, you have, I think, many options.
Mm-hmm. So again, for those who asked about contacting our folks on the webinar today, if you actually go to the PALCUS website and go up to the top, resources, consular, you will actually see that they are listed here. We're still adding Nelson's information here. Website updates tend to be a little slow, but again, we will send out information to contact him as well. We also have some of the Q&As that we do on these webinars. We've actually written them out on our website. And so the ones from today will be added eventually. So you can always go find them there. And then as we talked about before, being a PALCUS member can actually really help your citizenship process. So if you're looking to take the simple test, you can practice your Portuguese during our language conversation groups. And if you are applying through a spouse, you can use our membership as a way to show connection to the community. And there's just some other benefits to being a member. And very easy. You go to our website, click on become a member, and signing up takes 5 minutes. And membership starts at $50 for the year, so quite affordable. There you go. And with that, say obrigado. For me, obrigada. So thank you so much to our panelists. It's like such great information. I think things that we haven't really covered in detail in the past that we get lots of questions for. I know this is not going to be the last webinar that we have. So thank you all so much for your time. Really, really valuable. And thank you to all those who joined us either on Zoom or on Facebook. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us, reach out to our panelists. And good luck with your citizenship process application. Just stick with it. Eventually, it will happen. And with that, we'll say have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks so much. Obrigado.